43x lower target.
Alright, hey there folks, how you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Please bear with any background racket that you might hear throughout this production. We are on location where life happens, and sometimes there's stuff going on right over there that interferes with what we're trying to do in here. Today's video is going to be short and sweet because basically we don't have to get real deep in the weeds with these two optics that we're here to review today. If you missed the review we did on the Crimson Trace RAD and RAD Pro, I'll put the thumbnail up there and a link in the description. Those tests were conducted a few months ago on a pair of 10mm pistols, and both optics performed admirably. We had no issues with either one. So we're back here today with two more Crimson Trace pistol optics. We have over here on my Canik Mete MC9 the Crimson Trace Micro RAD, and over here on my buddy Joe's Glock 43x we have the Micro RAD Pro. So you may be wondering to yourself, what's the difference between the two? We're going to cover that here in just a minute. Hang tight. First, as I always like to show folks, these are safe and empty weapons. There's no ammunition for either of these pistols out here in our workspace, and it's going to stay that way for this portion of the content. So what do we have here? Now, I'll throw the specs up over here on the side, but just know that we have two micro pistol optics they take the J-point or the RMSC footprint. They also take the Crimson Trace Micro RAD footprint. The battery mounts on the bottom. You have to remove the optic to change the batteries out on either one of them. Not the best thing in the world, but considering the fact that both optics claim a 2-year battery life, it's really not that big of a deal. Now, with that being said, I will point out to you now that the major difference between the Crimson Trace Micro RAD and the Micro RAD Pro is simply that the Micro RAD Pro has a shake awake feature that the Micro RAD doesn't have. Again, with a 2-year battery life, that's not a real big deal. Both of these sport a 3-minute of angle red dot and ambient light adjustment. You don't have to adjust the brightness of the dot. It automatically adjusts whether you're in low light or if you're in a bright atmosphere. We tested that today and it worked out really, really well. These two optics are mounted on two very different pistols. They share a lot of common traits. For starters, they're both Micro 9 pistols. They're both in 9mm, and prior to today's range session, I had never fired either one. The Canik Mete belongs to me. I purchased it for the purpose of this review. I want to do some other stuff with it too, but that's what I got it for. And the 43x was loaned to us by a longtime channel supporter, a guy named Joe. He provided the Glock 29 from our last Crimson Trace RAD comparison, as well as he donated a pair of Night Force rings to us for a video that we did on a Crimson Trace scope earlier this year. And for those of you that didn't realize that Crimson Trace made scopes, or red dots for that matter, and thought that all they did was make laser grips for pistols, take a moment to listen to this word from our sponsor. If you are watching this, then you probably know that Crimson Trace has a long and reputable history producing quality laser products for the firearms industry, such as the LS-250 laser saddle shown here on the Mossberg Shockwave. But did you know they now have a full line of quality accessories to include both red and green laser sights, tactical lights, electronic sights, and rifle scopes to rival other premium brands on the market today? From the novice outdoorsman to the tactical professional, Crimson Trace offers a wide range of budget-friendly to premium rifle scopes to meet your operational needs. All Crimson Trace products are backed by their no-hassle limited lifetime warranty. Check them out now and use promo code J10 to save 10% off your next purchase. So I took the pistols out to the range, zeroed them on paper, and then began doing some field work with them. Now, With the micro rad on the Glock platform, I had absolutely no problems throughout the duration of the course. With the micro rad, and I'm going to point this out because it may come up for you, shortly into my testing, I noticed that the zero was shifting, and I thought, oh no, there's something wrong with the optic. Turns out one of the screws had worked itself loose, and so the optic had just a little bit of play in it. The screws for these things, I'll try to put up a picture here so you can see, come from Crimson Trace with some blue thread locker on the threads. It apparently didn't work. I went ahead and put a couple of drops of thread locker on there and had no more issues with it after that, so just keep that in mind. I worked on steel from 25 to 50 yards out at the range with both pistols and had a pretty good hit probability. And while I wasn't able to completely run a plate rack with either one without a miss, they are micro 9s and they were little bitty plates at 25 yards. So I got close, but just couldn't quite pull it off today. That's probably more on me than it was on either pistol or the optic. So the final test that I did with the pistols, having fired about 100 rounds through each of them, was to do a standing 10-yard unsupported accuracy test with both pistols to see what kind of groups I could hold. With the Glock 43x, well, this is what we had, and as I showed you there at the very beginning, you'll notice during the course of fire, when I was shooting at that target, there were no rounds on paper in the white. That's more for something else. But just know, this was the group that we had fired through that one. And if you add up the score, it had a numerical value of 120 out of 135. So moving on to the Canik Mete MC9, fired at the top target. And while the group's a little different, was it any worse than the other one? Well, if you put them up side by side and you count the bullet holes, you'll see that, again, we had a numerical score of 120. So there really wasn't much difference. I enjoyed shooting both of them. I've got quite a bit more trigger time on a Glock, but I felt no distinct advantage with this pistol over the Mete MC9. So take that for what it's worth. All in all, I was very pleased with the optics. They don't feel quite as big on the pistol as the full-size RADs do. That was one of my chief complaints with the design of the RAD, was just the big square corners on it and how it could potentially dig. But with these, they're quite a bit smaller and didn't really see that as being a thing. So back to the difference, the only real difference, if you look at the specs on them, the only real difference is the shake to wake feature on the Micro Rad Pro. I guess it would depend on you whether or not that's worth 50 bucks to you. With a battery life proposed of 2 years, I think I'm willing to take my chances with the regular Micro Rad, but I'd like to know what you think about it. If you were going to pick one, which one would you pick? If you have one, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, and let me know what you think of this video down below. Until next time, take care. God bless.